Momentico, no.
¿Estamos todos listos?
Hello. Hola, Lionel. Lionel también. Hola, ya estamos todos.
A Lionel, ¿qué vamos a regañar?
Hola, buenos días a todos. Bienvenidos al segundo día de nuestro ciclo de conferencias del evento de IFLA Regional 2020. Hi everyone, welcome to our second day of Regional Conference IFLA Americas 2020. Today's agenda is scheduled in two sections. The first part will be presented in English about climate change and its relationship in landscape, and the second part about green infrastructure. To start our English segment, I introduce to you Raquel Peñalosa. Raquel is going to be presenting the climate change panel in a landscape. Raquel is a landscape architect, member of the Association of Landscape Architects of Canada, and certified member of the Association of Landscape Architects of Quebec. Raquel has more than 25 years of practice in the field of planning, design, development, and construction. Projects in landscape architecture and urban planning, as well as coordination and management of multidisciplinary teams. She's recognized for her leadership and ability to take synthetic, global perspective on development issues while bringing an innovative approach to planning and implementation, and for her ability to develop projects that promote greener, more sustainable and equitable environments in an interdisciplinary design approach. Raquel has worked in both public and private spheres, large-scale urban planning projects, and local public spaces. I want to remind everyone that if you have any questions or comments, you can post them on the YouTube live chat of IFLA Americas, and will be answered at the end of the session. Hi, Raquel.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. So now I'm on?
Yes.
Okay, so hello to everybody. Welcome our presenters in this session, Colleen, Natalie, Lionel, Carlos, and welcome to everybody. I'm very happy to be here and to be part of the IFLA Americas Regional Conference. As president of the Americas from 2014 to 2018, working in the Caribbean and Central America and throughout the whole continent has been always and talking about climate change for the whole continent has been a direction that we have taken through the work that we have done. So I wanted to talk about, what are we going to do here? We are going to have I'm going to do a little introduction on the subject, and then we have the 4 presentations, about 10 minutes each, and then we will have exchange and conversation among the panelists, and then we would like to have you come in and ask us questions. So it will be about we have what time is it right now? It's about so we'll have about half an hour of conversation. So that's really interesting, and I think this is all the presenters will be giving us key points that would allow us to make the questions and have a very rich conversation. As the entire world population has only become without distinction affected by the COVID pandemic, this crisis is terrible, and but it cannot hide the bigger and crucial one, the climate change crisis. The pandemic cause remains to be confirmed, but certainly reveals a fundamental fact: our disconnect and unbalanced relationship with all living systems, whether animal, plant, human. The unlimited exploitation of the natural and limited resources, and this is where and the high consumption, the effect of human action into the environment has caused, as we all know, the loss of biodiversity. This is saying that 47% of biodiversity is already lost. The high emissions of CO2, which is one of the biggest challenges, and all because of human action. So the Stockholm Resilience Center has said the difference between the COVID crisis and climate change is that the COVID crisis, even if we have spent almost a year with this, is a short-term impact compared to climate crisis. So and that's why climate change is hard to envision and hard to act on, because it doesn't is this long-term impact that is not always easy to see and to take action into. But what it has come from both is that is a collective action that we need to move forward, in order to and we are all impacted, but the solutions will come from a collective action. Within IFLA, as I had mentioned, both in the region, we have as part of the Charter of the Landscape of the Americas, climate change is well there. Consider of how it is affecting the work that we do and the impact and mostly the capacity that we have to make actions. We will see what will be the action: mitigation, resilience, adaptation, and that will be our presenters that will talk about this. So where is landscape architects? Where are landscape architects coming into this equation? What are we doing? What can we do? What do we need to change or embrace to be active contributors to resolve climate change impacts? Today, we have the honor to have 4 prominent landscape architects and researchers that will share their perspectives and experiences with us. So I will start, as I had mentioned, this is a cross conversation among them and with you all through your questions and the YouTube chat. And please, we want to hear your voices when we get into that section. So I will start with Natalie. So if we have Natalie's presentation. Natalie, yes?
Hello.
Yeah, so yes, I'm just going to introduce you, Natalie. So Natalie is an emerging landscape architect. She recently was awarded the LAF, the Landscape Architecture Foundation Honor Scholarship for Inclusive Community Design, and the ASLA New York Chapter Designing for the Public Realm Scholarship. She blends the lenses of landscape architecture and policy. Natalie obtained a Bachelor's of Art from the Friedman University in New York in 2015 in environmental policy, and a professional master in 2020 from the City College of New York, the Bernard and School of Architecture. And she works at Being Here Landscape Architects and Environmental Design. Through her work, Natalie hopes to broaden the role of landscape architects' play in addressing modern challenges. The systems-based approach landscape architecture allows for a more holistic perspective on a range of issues, and especially to those related to climate change. She thinks that the way we are trained to design landscape architects can easily be translated to design policies and initiatives with a more nuanced tone. Natalie will share her research and projects both in New York and in Puerto Rico, where her family came from. And she will share her perspective on climate change mitigation and adaptation. So, Natalie.
Yes. Okay.
The floor is yours.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this conference. I'm really honored to be speaking with you all today. This is my first time sharing with Microsoft Edge, so I just want to make sure that I get it right. Okay, are you all seeing my screen? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go to presentation view. Okay, and then it's in presentation view now, correct? Okay, great. So first, I'd like to tell you briefly about my background and current professional work, then dive deeper into the more research-based projects I've been working on based in Puerto Rico. I came to landscape architecture from an undergraduate degree in environmental policy. After college, I felt my day-to-day work was actually very disconnected from the environment and people. When I decided to pursue a master's in landscape architecture, I thought I was making the shift from climate change mitigation to climate change adaptation. I was worried that top-down policy approaches would face an endless battle against the powerful fossil fuel industry without realizing the need to help people adapt to climate change, because for my generation, climate change was already a present issue. However, the more I work with the systems landscape architects continuously encounter, I realize that mitigation and adaptation strategies cannot work separately from each other. Based in New York City, I have been working on urban canopy, green infrastructure, and community garden initiatives that inherently include both mitigation and adaptation components at multiple scales, from thinking about carbon sequestration in both urban trees and soils, and trying to figure out what plant species will adapt to a warming urban scenario while working with the needs of communities. My current Puerto Rico-based research asks how can existing initiatives evolve to become more systems-based, including El Yunque National Forest regeneration practices and community solar microgrids post-Hurricane Maria, while national forest regeneration practices focus on ecological adaptation. Community adaptation to have access to clean water is not prioritized. Similarly, solar microgrids have the potential to incorporate greater adaptation strategies to supply clean energy to communities in disaster events, while creating the case for a more ecological future of Puerto Rico. Essentially, the El Yunque case study focuses more on the ecology and non-human species because it's a protected rainforest run by the National Forest Service, while energy is thought to be more of a human issue, so ecosystems and non-human species are ignored when thinking about renewable energy and microgrids. So first I'll start with a summary of the El Yunque case study that I worked on, but as a disclaimer, this was more of a research-based project, so I don't have advanced design graphics. So when I started researching this case study, I began by asking how can forest regeneration strategies respond to community needs considering the uncertain future of climate change. If climate change causes decreased rainfall and increased temperatures, as projected in Puerto Rico, El Yunque could transform from a rainforest into a dry forest. Over more than 100 years, El Yunque management and restoration practices have shifted from focusing on protecting timber and water resources to an ecosystem approach, and it's now attempting to incorporate more adaptive and collaborative strategies with the community, but it's largely environmental education based. The new collaborative plan states that it recognizes the important role of people in nature and their values, beliefs, and customs for sustainable forest management. It adopted the concept of co-manejo, or shared stewardship, between the U.S. Forest Service and active partners in conservation and restoration activities. El Yunque actually supplies 20% of all of the drinking water of the island of Puerto Rico, and it's the cleanest source that exists compared to some other questionable sources on the island. But the pumping system is run on electricity, so during a disaster event like Hurricane Maria, the system will not work, which forces people to access the pipes themselves to collect water. The current initiatives that are focused on the water system in El Yunque rainforest are mostly focusing on animals, specifically migratory shrimp species, and they filter and cycle the water in the rivers and streams. So this is very important for clean water, but scientists have been recommending to remove dams and reduce the water intake, especially during drought and disaster conditions, and move the intakes to higher altitude, which would be farther from the communities. So as communities are struggling to have access to water, this is kind of an issue if these two things aren't balanced better. So in order to take into the account of the human need for accessible water, my research recommended advancing the co-manejo initiatives to include filter-based rainwater catchment systems at the edges of the forest and communities, as well as rethinking the intensive roadway systems in the national parks, which lead to landslides and the pollution of the water system. So the forest management strategies in El Yunque are becoming more collaborative, but they will need to respond more explicitly to community needs considering the uncertain future of climate change. If outdated values of pristine nature persist, rather than celebrating humans and non-humans as co-members within the Forest Service will likely no longer prove itself relevant in a quickly changing climate and society. So moving on to my latest research, which I started as my Master's of Landscape Architecture final project, The City of the Rising Sun and Moon. I was inspired by post-Hurricane Maria community solar microgrids, the resilience of people to rebuild in their own way, and the resilience of the rich ecology of Puerto Rico, taking a policy approach and consulting with the NGO Para la Naturaleza. I proposed advancing a 2008 light pollution code by specifying light spectrum levels in outdoor light fixtures and the addition of vegetated buffers to block light from critical habitat, as well as create storm surge and flood absorption benefits. A darker night in Puerto Rico seems inevitable due to climate change, political economic issues, and crippling infrastructure. Hurricanes are not new to the Caribbean islands, however, they are projected to increase in frequency and intensity. This illuminated image of Puerto Rico, fueled by imported fossil fuels and a conventional power grid system, is compromised. But is it necessary to idealize this illumination level as the standard we need to design back to, or can energy in the form of night lighting be reduced in order to darken areas that may actually require it to be darker? The power reality in Puerto Rico is a crippling grid powered by 8 major fossil fuel plants, all within flood-prone coasts. 8 renewable energy plants, mainly in the form of wind and solar, have been developed with an ambitious goal of 100% renewable energy by 2050. However, these plants are not without their vulnerabilities and often are built without system-based social and ecological assessments. Community microgrids based on solar have been popping up throughout the island. If community or individuals with solar are still connected to the grid, however, there is potential to lose their power simply by a fallen tree or power line. Because solar power will only supply energy when the sun is shining, making the shift to solar will require a decrease in demand. Connecting this drawback of solar power with the existing light pollution issue in Puerto Rico, the proposal aims to assess areas that are potentially wasting energy in the form of light pollution. A darker night in Puerto Rico seems inevitable, so how can we adapt to this change? My focus area is the northeast region of Puerto Rico, and as a case study, the city of Fajardo, which is home to Las Cabezas Nature Reserve. Las Cabezas consists of 7 ecosystems and contains critical habitat for endangered sea turtle and coral species. Research has shown that all of these species are affected by light in some way because of how they perceive light or because certain biological processes have evolved with the moon phases. So I began to speculate what this illumination plan could look like if we designed with non-human species to address social justice issues for both humans and non-humans. My research concludes that marine and coastal species are highly sensitive to blue light, as this is the only light spectrum that can penetrate water. Red, on the opposite side of the spectrum, seems to harm these species much less. Into Las Cabezas neighborhood and nature reserve, which is home to one of Puerto Rico's bioluminescent bays. The use of dimmer red lights seems to affect these bioluminescent species less. These organisms migrate to the top of the mangrove lagoon during a new moon and can be seen when agitated. They migrate to the bottom of the lagoon during a full moon. However, sky glow mimics a full moon, causing them to stay at the bottom more often, which is something that tour guides have been struggling with because they take visitors and tourists out to see the glowing waters, but if the bioluminescence is actually staying at the bottom, then there will be nothing to see. And sky glow is worse in a place like Puerto Rico due to atmospheric conditions like humidity, clouds, Sahara sand dust. And then sea turtles have also been heavily studied in regards to light pollution. So turtle hatchlings are known to be fatally attracted to coastal lighting rather than the glow of the moon on the sea. Other beaches in Puerto Rico have began to install red lights like the ones you see here, but they're mostly just a single red light installed directly in front of conventional white or yellow lights. So this strategy only reduces hatchling attraction by 6%. So my proposal included using alternative lighting fixtures like embedded streetlights, reflective streetlights, and also the use of glow stone material or reflective stone material. I also suggested reforesting waterfronts and beaches in order to block excess light, but also double as a storm surge and flood absorption barrier. And the plant species were also chosen based on heavy wind and hurricane tolerance, as well as ecological and cultural value. So for me, this project was continuously working with the interconnectedness of mitigation and adaptation. advancing solar microgrids and reducing the need for excess lighting in the long term, we're at the mitigation level. But providing alternative strategies for night lighting in a blackout event and tying in waterfront reforestation and resiliency is more adaptation. So if individuals or communities have solar microgrids, their homes and indoor spaces are prepared for a disaster event, but the streets and the public realm will remain dark if we don't have alternative strategies to the conventional energy grid. My proposal was a way to celebrate darkness and bring it to life on the terms of a tropical island landscape, as opposed to the Western colonial model of outdoor lighting, in order to make the night safer and attract people, visitors, and non-humans. Thank you. I'm looking forward to questions and the discussion.
Thank you very much, Natalie. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of material for discussion and exchange. Both Carlos and, as I know, Carlos and Colleen have worked on coastals. So that will be, I'm also looking for that.
Okay, great. Should I stop sharing?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And then I will, so we can move on and invite Colleen. So if I can see the presentation for Colleen, although I am. Should I move forward? I'm just going to start presenting Colleen, so we move with time. I don't see the slide that should present her, but anyway, I have the information here, so I'm just going to, since I know Colleen.
Did the slide from the presentation come up?
Not yet.
Yep. Okay.
So,
sorry.
Colleen Mercer-Clark, very pleased to introduce her as my dear friend and fellow Canadian. As you know, I'm a Colombian, but I'm a Canadian also, and we're talking to you from the north of this beautiful continent. As you had seen in her presentation of yesterday, a dedicated advocate of climate change. Colleen has more than 30 years of experience as a senior environmentalist, trained as a marine ecologist. She attained a master in landscape architecture, working with environmental assessment and management, including coastal, watershed, municipal design, and conservation. In 2005, she pursued a doctorate in interdisciplinary studies at Dalhousie in 2010, and a postdoctoral studies at Memorial University 2011 in coastal governance, health, and impending climate change. So she's been in the water for a while. She's worked in community government research teams in Canada and in the Caribbean, so she knows. We talk often about the Caribbean coastal conditions and situations today with climate change. So she has worked on coastal preparedness for environmental changes associated with climate change and extreme weather events. She's been CSLA president in 2003 and 2004 and led the CSLA Climate Change Working Group on adaptation and chairs the IFLA climate change for till now, till working group. And in this position, Colleen, she has now moved to being the chair of the IFLA World Professional Practice and Policy. But in the position of climate change, as a leader of the working group for IFLA, she has moved two important documents, the IFLA Global Accord Adaptation for a Changing World in 2017. That was signed, the first signature was from IFLA Americas. And let me just move, where is the rest of my presentation?
That's plenty.
And the IFLA, the last, I was almost finished. And the last document, and I think Colleen introduced it yesterday in the presentation, and she's going to talk to you about this, and this will be a core of the conversation later on. The climate action 2019-2021 framework for planning our future. Colleen will address IFLA's commitment to climate change, mitigation, adaptation, resilience, along with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. The floor is yours, Colleen.
Thanks, Raquel. Let's see if I can get this. Have we got the slides?
I don't think we see them yet.
Not yet.
Mm-hmm.
Try once more. It's a long way from Canada.
I think it's coming. There.
There? Excellent. Hola, buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. Yes, indeed, in Ottawa, Canada here, the leaves are changing color and it snowed yesterday. Only a tiny bit, but it did snow. So today, building on yesterday's presentation, I wanted to talk to you about the key elements of the IFLA Climate Action Plan. The plan is intended to guide landscape architects in their everyday practice and to help them make informed decisions about how they should be addressing emission reductions and preparing our communities for the changes as we go forward. As Raquel has said, climate change poses immediate and long-term challenges for both society and the environment, and it's important always to bring back to mind that climate change will not change in 2100. It will continue to intensify thereafter. So the world that we know now is not the world that the future will bring. So the challenges since March of last year, these challenges have still been in existence, but now we've added a global pandemic to it, which only exacerbates all of the other issues and adds to the stress and strife in human communities and societies. So the crisis that we're facing is still of a almost unimaginable, unknowable scale. In 2017, Raquel and I and a couple of other people in Canada drafted something that became started as the Americas Accord and became the IFLA Global Accord. We're working on the three basic principles to help landscape architects as they move forward to guide their decision making in planning and design. COVID has really tested those principles. Basically, we have to learn to withstand, to thrive under adversity, to be resilient, to change the way we conduct our lives, to change the tools we use to communicate, to transform our society and the way it works, to ensure that food and water supply chains work, that the ecosystems on which we depend still thrive, to be sustainable. So COVID has been kind of a little bit of a test case going forward as to how we can indeed make this journey from business as usual through surviving, through adapting, through to transforming, to becoming that society that we all really want to see in the future. So yesterday I told you that in September of 2019, the 77 national organizations that comprise the World Council of the International Federation declared a climate and biodiversity emergency. Even before COVID, things on this planet were not doing well. Ecosystems were in decline, further accelerated by severe events like wildfires, intensifying storms, and shifts in climate. Also in 2019, we proposed a climate action plan, which was adopted by the World Council, committing our profession to take action on climate change, to reducing our contributions to emissions. And yes, Natalia, you cannot separate reducing emissions from adapting to change. The two march step in step, and indeed, the outcomes are more positive when we treat them together. The plan also commits us to protecting nature, the best hope we have for stabilizing planetary systems and helping humanity meet those coming changes. To preparing communities for disaster, from intensifying weather, extreme heat and cold, floods, droughts, famine, and to planning now and designing now for that changing future that's coming. So there are a number of components to the plan, and this is a living document. This is something that we are working on and hopefully evolving at the international level, that we want every region to look at it, to come in on it, to provide guidance on it, and to adopt it for what makes sense within their region, and then indeed at the National Association level for what makes sense within their country. The plan also helps to guide the work of the individual landscape architect by challenging us when we're doing work on policy, on planning and design, that we ask ourselves these questions. So the first component emphasizes how every little bit that we do counts, how even the smallest action to reduce emissions can have widespread outcomes when we all do our part. So we have to reduce our carbon footprint. And one of the first things we can do as landscape architects is stop cutting trees. Where we can, question, weigh, evaluate, assess all other alternative design options that will enable us to protect and manage and in many ways enhance the existing trees and green space that we already have. Trees remove carbon from the air, so every decision is important. We also must look inwardly, and we must reduce our own emissions and our own carbon footprint. So we must question travel plans, how we heat and cool our offices and homes. Do we really need to irrigate? What materials are we specifying in the construction of the projects that we design? Are there better materials? Are there lower carbon footprints in the manufacture and the transport and the placement of those materials? The second component of the action plan is to love every leaf. And in doing this, we must commit to protecting the wild that we have left, including all those spaces in rural and urban communities. We must value every green space we have. We must value every tree, and we must plant more. Canada, Australia, nations all over the world are working now on afforestation plans. Afforestation isn't reforestation. It's not replacing the tree you cut down. Afforestation is planting trees where there are right now no trees. This is a call to arms for every landscape architect, and it's something that we do in the course of our daily lives. So where you would have put 5 trees on a plan, try and put 50. We also must work to protect wetlands, marshes, and mangroves as green space that are also sequestering carbon and providing other nature-based services like, as Natalia was talking about, clean water. And we must find ways in our work to promote and advance nature for all. Last year, we, at IFLA, we became a member of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. The IUCN does a lot more than try to protect the extinction of species. It has programs in restoration and resilience and urban redevelopment. But the Nature for All program, which began in the Americas, is a core program that focuses on the belief that a personal experience of nature is necessary for us to value nature. I've known for years, from my own personal experience, that this can lead to a love for nature that stays with you throughout your life. Our love for nature can also translate into having a higher valuation of natural environments, for parks, for green spaces, for river shores, for ocean beaches. And access to nature should not only be available to people, it should be the right of every citizen of the globe. As society becomes more understanding of the role nature plays in the functioning of our even urban human environments, we're finally seeking ways to identify our natural assets and put them on the same par as infrastructure assets and economic assets, and to place economic and social value on their contributions to our lives. Nature for All is helping to do this, and IFLA is committing to advancing the understanding of the role played by natural assets, and to value and protect those assets wherever they might be located. As the planet warms and the climate shifts, weather patterns will become more extreme, disasters will occur. In 2019, when we drafted the COVID action plan, who knew we'd be facing the sort of changes COVID brought? But COVID has proven to us that we can be resilient, we can prosper under adversity, and with even greater commitment, we must now plan and design to strengthen our communities and to protect those ecosystems on which we depend. And we must not do that just with strength. We must do it with grace and elegance. There's nothing that says that flood prevention must be a large and ugly seawall. Our profession, has the capacity to make needed infrastructure functional, attractive, and useful components of our community. This is how we can transform society, moving toward healthy and sustainable communities for all. One of the newest approaches to planning and design partners natural assets with built infrastructure to ensure that the greatest benefits are accrued to both at the lowest possible cost. That's an IUCN definition. This is one of the places where partnering with IUCN benefits us. When you're arguing in front of a design board or a mayor or council, and you're arguing for nature-based solutions, there's the potential that you can reach out and find a member of the IUCN in your particular city who would be prepared to stand with you at that podium and support you in these arguments. Nature-based solutions are providing new and pragmatic means to reduce the impacts from severe weather, to reduce energy demands and provide renewable energy solutions, and to capture a wide range of co-benefits to both natural systems and human populations. Transformation, getting to where we need to be, is a wicked, complicated problem. And wicked problems have trickle-down effects on many aspects of both society and the environment. Wicked problems are not easily solved by a single discipline. So increasingly, decision makers are seeing the value in interdisciplinary teams. These teams include planners, engineers, landscape architects, ecologists, geomorphologists, hydrologists, sociologists, economists, accountants, health professionals, decision makers. It goes on and on and on. It's specific to the needs of each individual project. Stakeholder and community members are integral to the work of interdisciplinary teams. And what should never be forgotten is the value provided by what a colleague of mine here in Canada referred to as subject matter experts, the people who maintain landscapes, the people who work on our city infrastructure. Each of these people brings a unique perspective to the problems that we face, and each of them can contribute significantly to the planning and design for the future. They have valuable knowledge and valuable insights. These are our challenges for today and the future, and how we achieve them is going to largely be up to you. The International Federation is your voice at the international level. What we produce, we hope, guides action at the regional, at the national, and at the local level, and indeed guides the action of every landscape architect in the world, all 35,000 of us. So, reduce your emissions, plant more trees, protect the wild and the parks and the green space we have, create more. Plan for disaster, it will happen, and it is coming. And above all, keep your eye on the horizon and design for that changing future. And next year, the Canadian Society of Landscape Architects invites you to attend our annual Congress on Nature-Based Solutions, a Green Recovery for a Great Recovery. Right now, it looks like this is going to be the first national Congress of our association that will be a virtual Congress. We make that decision in 2 weeks. The call for abstracts is out. We'd love to welcome each and every one of you. And thanks for listening to me today, and I look forward to the discussion to come.
Thank you very much, Colleen. Great presentation, and took a lot of notes here also. I can see a very fructuous conversation coming. So our next presenter, I'm gonna start talking about him. Is Leonel Castro. He's a agronomist, an engineer from the University Rafael Landívar. He has environmental studies at the Berkshire Community College, and he's given many conferences and in Guatemala and outside. And since for the last 15 years, he's been the general manager of the Natural Garden enterprise, and he's a founder member of the Tiver Technology, environmental technology, and within this one, the vetiver plant has been used for the protection of berms, erosion control, and environmental rehabilitation. Has been an innovative approach for an implementation to tackle present climate change impacts. So I invite Leonel Castro to give us his presentation.
Thank you, Colin. Good morning to all, and thanks for the invitation. It's an honor and a pleasure for me. And if you allow me, I want to share my screen, so you guys can see my presentation. And this time I will introduce a new concept which has to do with environmental concern, and more specifically with climate change and global warming. We have created this concept, which is 2H0 gardens, which 2H0 means or stands for, this is an acronym that comes from the Spanish, but it means basically non-water footprint gardens. I want to share what was our view before we came out with this concept. Nowadays, in modern society,
Excuse me, Leonel, can you put the presentation form, because I think we see the whole.
Yes, full screen.
It's full screen? Okay, sorry. Yeah.
No, you're not.
No, he's not?
No, he's not.
It's okay? Everybody can see me?
Just go to the animation and then just put your full screen, because I think we see the kind of like a working screen.
Let me work on it.
I think you just need to go to animaciones.
You have to go to the right corner of the present image, and then you have to press to open your PowerPoint.
Yes, that's the button that you were just on. That's go like to those 4 little icons on the bottom next to the zoom. And then it's the last one, like next to the 76%.
Almost there.
So you see like at the bottom, the zoom where it says 76%. And then it's the icon next to 76%. Yes.
Abajo a la derecha. Okay. Sorry.
Or we can continue like this.
Yes, please go. Leonel, please go. Somebody's calling.
¿Estoy en este momento? Ok. Y la pantalla, ¿estoy dentro? Ok, no entiendo, la verdad, estoy compartiendo.
Leonel, go ahead.
No,
Go ahead. Go ahead with the presentation.
Voy a salir de pantalla.
Sorry.
¿No? Se ve la pantalla. Can you guys see?
No, we don't see it.
Can you guys see my screen at this time?
No,
Okay,
and
I don't
sorry, I really.
know. I'm just trying to get in. Okay, I don't know.
Sorry, Lionel.
Yeah.
Go ahead and
me-
start presenting it as you had it before. No problem. I just wanted to make it for you, but go ahead and go back to your presentation as you had it. Sorry.
Okay. So.
Yes. It was more important the content. Go ahead.
I just.
Please start your presentation, Lionel. No worries. No worries.
Okay. Thanks for conference, but I like to try once more. So no, you cannot see it.
No, not yet.
Now we do.
There.
Now we do. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Lionel.
Okay. Let's try to do my best without your presentation. So what I was trying to say.
We see your presentation. Don't worry. Yeah.
Okay. Let me try to get reconnected again. So, demographic pressures and an augmentation of demand of landscaping spaces. Those are current generation are more future benefits and the crucial role of outdoor spaces. Well, however, models trend to show environmental concern. The question will be, how do we deal with this? Then the problematic comes out. These two phenomena exert pressure on soil and water, watering large landscape areas hits directly on water table levels and other related costs such as economic and environmental. So Betty Vertec, which is the company that I represent, and the technical staff aware of the problematic came out with the solution of contribute significantly to stop water depletion. Stop topsoil mining, the big issue local, and for us in what the reducing lower cost of constructions of landscaping spaces. The solution proposed consisted to incorporate non-water footprint in gardens, which non-water footprint. In gardens well adapted to hostile edaphic conditions, which H0 gardens, which adaptation to low or non-soil moisture and long periods of droughts. Also, 2H0 gardens are adapted to extreme poor edaphic conditions. Once established successfully, these gardens will give amazing benefits for soil and water conservation. So the question next will be, which plants will support this extreme conditions? So eligibility of plants is given by its tolerance to droughts and large periods of droughts and poor edaphic conditions. These are the two main characteristics to as a criteria to choose the plants we are going to use for this type of gardens. And these plants are given by its photosynthetic pathway, which is a main topic that I will develop next. Photosynthetic pathway is the type of metabolism that plants has. There are three main photosynthetic pathway, and they are classified in three groups, which are C3, C4, and CAM. These are technicism, botanical technicism for to describe the type of metabolism. 89 of the species known on planet have a C3 metabolism. Only 1% C4 and CAM 10%. CAM photosynthetic supports 2H2 garden, and this is the relationship that they have. We will discuss widely about CAM metabolism due to tolerance to long periods of droughts. The term CAM stands for Crassulaceae acid metabolism. CAM metabolism gather those plants that result in very little or non-water consumption. Moreover, CAM plants keep low economic and environmental costs for landscaping spaces constructions. If we understand this benefit and we understand how CAM plants work or the benefits that it gives us, we could translate these benefits to save money and to protect the environment. This is a very plain classification of plants according to its photosynthesis, C3, C4, and CAM. Important is to say that C3 plants, they grow in very favorable condition and demand lots of water to survive. To complete its phenologic cycle, they need abundant quantities of water. On the other hand, C4 metabolism, this kind of plants, they make a difference in the photosynthetic process comparing to C3 plants. They use water more efficiently than C3 plants in the synthesis of carbohydrates. It is known that they grow in warm and dry weather, generally tropical and subtropical. So we are trying to understand the metabolism and how they can be adapted to extreme conditions for mainly water and soil. Can plants, which are the most efficient of the tree metabolism, they use water most efficiently than any other. They make a timing variation of the photosynthetic process. Stoma open and closes according to either fresh or hot hours of the day. This defense mechanism make can plants to grow slower than C3 and C4 plants. So it is important to notice this and to be aware that they will be slower growers. They grow in very hostile conditions such as very low rainfall, extreme hot weather, poor edaphic conditions, and sometimes all these conditions together. These are some families of that belongs to can plants. It is important to say that not all of these species of each family belongs to can plant or have a can metabolism. Cactaceae, Agavaceae, succulents, Euphorbiaceae, Arceus, and Bromelias. Here, the benefits of can metabolism. Remove water footprint eventually to non-use of water, none at all. A low environmental cost of carbon dioxide fixation. Scenic benefits, they could stay or be improved according to or compared to traditional gardens. Low cost maintenance and construction. Low phytosanitary impact, low edaphic requirements, and use of native species, which is very important to note that in Mesoamerica we share about the same meteorologic conditions, and we have a wide range to use this kind of plants. Working, we use this concept of this type of gardens in smart cities with green buildings for environmental restoration and environmental certifications and landscaping with environmental concerns. This is a graphic that illustrates how can plants use none or very little water from right to left. And C4 plants use more efficiently water, and C3 plants uses water in big quantities. This is an illustration equivalent to the former one, which illustrates the amount of water that this plant can consume. These are some images that show us how camp garden H20 gardens look like. At this moment, we haven't developed yet gardens locally, so we picked this plants to illustrate how H20 gardens will look like. And this is it for all. I want to add up that the Ministry of Environment in Guatemala, they are very interested to get a demo to see how to get to know the performance of this 2H0 Gardens. So very soon we will have a demo on their facilities. So you guys can see in real life how this looks like. This is all for now, and thank you very much. Waiting for questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Lionel. I'm sorry that I disturbed your beginning of your presentation, but the content goes beyond any problematic, but the technical aspect. So thank you, and I think you're bringing a very important point, is the dry landscapes that are the ones that exist and the ones that are turning into dry landscape, because the climate change, this erratic change on there is lots of water or no water at all. So I think these are solutions and issues that can really could not only be in the countries where this is common, this type of plant material, but beyond. So thank you. And then
Welcome.
yeah, so can we pass on? So we look forward to the conversation. I think every one of you is bringing really amazing material for the conversation. And so we will move into our last presentation by Carlos Yankelevich. So if you could stop sharing your screen, Lionel, so Carlos can come in.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Carlos Yankelevich. Now it's your turn. The last but not the least, and you will see why I'm saying this. I don't see the presentation image, but I'll just move on. I also am very proud to present my friend Carlos Yankelevich. He's a well-renowned landscape architect practicing landscape urban design and environmental planning. He studied in Buenos Aires, Argentina, London, England, and he is particularly interested in biodiversity, ecological regeneration, and cultural landscapes. He has led important initiatives both with ICOMOS IFLA, the Joint Committee of IFLA and the UN organization ICOMOS, and Carlos has also been involved with IFLA for many, many years. We don't count them anymore. And he's still there giving us guidance and insight from these many years. This is the long-term benefits of being in an organization. He was president of the region from 2010 to 2014, the chair of the professional practice and policy for the IFLA Americas region. He's presently the chair of the new that he created, the new IFLA Landscape and Agriculture Working Group, and he will continue to be the commissioner for Central America and the Caribbean and for IFLA Americas, the subregion of IFLA Americas. As a practitioner, he is a CEO of the Tropica International. And so Carlos has had a long career of both working with professional and academic commitments. He has, in the academic, he chairs the Landscape Observatory of the University of Costa Rica, and he has had many numerous publications. And as he was said yesterday morning, and as well as in the regional council, Carlos has been mentor to many of the new generation of landscape architects coming both into the profession through his involvement in the university, but also for IFLA. So I welcome Carlos. He will address climate change and landscape ecological social resilience through the perspective of Latin America and the Caribbean. Present, which the Caribbean is a subregion of the Americas with a high vulnerability We know that the Pacific Islands are also one of the key, the most vulnerable places in the continent regarding climate change. He will point to biodiversity and landscape diversity as key elements for environmental health, ecological and social resilience, as well as the return to a more natural way for agricultural production. So I welcome Carlos Yankelevich to give us his presentation. And so this will be the fourth presentation, then we'll go into conversation. Please welcome, Carlos.
Right, thank you so much. I wonder if, well, yes. Latin America and the Caribbean is one of the areas of greatest vulnerability to the impacts of climate change worldwide. This phenomenon strikes infrastructure, public health, agriculture, the loss of human life, and various forms of production, also threatening the already fragile food security of influence countries. Currently, and at least for the next 20 years, the territory and landscapes and the population of our region are threatened by exposure to the large ocean masses. Climate change is a global reality, as it is also the fact that climate change patterns have become more erratic and extreme. Hurricanes, tsunamis, landslides, thaws, floods, fires, droughts. Temperature affects the quantity and intensity of hurricanes, storms, and droughts, as well as their effects on infrastructure, land and agriculture, with a considerable impact on food security.
Carlos, I'm sorry, could you share your presentation because I don't think we see it, or do you want to do it at one point?
If it's not shared, you haven't been seeing what I'm saying?
No, we're paying attention to your very profound words, but
I thought I was sharing it. Am I now?
No.
Can you see it?
No. Oh.
You have
coming. Great.
You can
yes.
you
yes.
can now.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. As I was saying, these are some of the effects of climate change worldwide. It's a pity. Then we were saying that land and agriculture has climate change have an impact also on land and agriculture, and of course on food security. Percentage of urban population by regions worldwide is increasing. Our region is the red line. Also, this diagram shows the effects of climate change impact on economics and human society during the last 4 decades, where key points move from cyclones, strong storms, sliding, becoming more paramount during the last decades against forest fire, flood, and droughts. Greater elevation of sea level induced floods of higher intensity, coastal erosion, marine intrusion, together with greater susceptibility to tides and storms. Placed on Latin American and the Caribbean, and placed on Latin American and the Caribbean a serious exposure to multiple risks affecting population, health, economy, and the environment, together with the availability of natural resources and food. The share of people who are undernourished by world regions between 2002 and 2018 shows our region, which is the red curve, within the most, endangered areas regarding as hunger in the world. So does the map. This is the curve of Latin American and Caribbean poverty in regard to access to food. Within Latin America, Mesoamerica has the higher prevalence of malnutrition, affecting up to 10.3% of the population. Poverty operates as a mechanism of reproduction of gaps between urban and rural and affects access to basic services, health, education, and infrastructure, among others. Despite the important progress observed throughout the last 15 years, the rates of poverty and extreme poverty in rural areas in our region represent about 1.8 times and 2.6 times, respectively, the rates from urban areas. To reach the United Nations Hunger Zero goal by 2030, $265 billion per year would be needed during the next 10 years, broken down into 67 million for social protection and 198 billion for pro-poor investments. To face the current challenges, we need improved technical resources as well as to promote and support community participation in order to reach our key target, which is to bring together ecological resilience with social resilience. Climate change effects presently measured by the Vulnerability Index accounts for the level of exposure of the region to climate change phenomena, the sensitivity of each country, and its ability to adapt to impact and effects of climate change, where risk is 10% of the index, exposure is 50%, sensitivity 25%, and adaptive capacity 15%. If we look at the Latin American and the Caribbean, we see in the three different maps, region exposure, region sensitivity, and region adaptation. And coming all together for the whole region, we've got these combined effects of vulnerability to climate change in our area. If we move to the Central American and the Caribbean, the index works in this way, where red is the more extreme, orange, middle, and lower impacts are in the yellow and green shadows. Landscape is a unique opportunity to strengthen resilience since it integrates all forms of biodiversity with the identity of human groups seeking a new encounter with nature. High biodiversity goes hand in hand with a great landscape diversity. Biodiversity and